Summing up the 5-day climate change conference in London, UK Foreign Office Minister Lord Mark Malloch-Brown told delegates economics was key to climate change policy.
In a time of global economic turbulence, unchecked climate change just contributes further to the insecurities in the world. The Stern Review tells us that inaction will cost the equivalent of 5 to 20% of global GDP if we don't address it, and that's on a continuing basis. In contrast, the costs of action, reducing greenhouse emissions to avoid the worst impacts of climate change, can be limited to around 1 to 2% of global GDP each year.
He said it was important to fund measures to reduce the impact of climate change now.
It sort of is one of those issues where, for a small investment, we save a huge loss to our global economy. And it's that failure to make that sort of upfront preemptive investment which has led Lord Stern to describe climate change as the largest market failure in history. And if we're to overcome it, there's a key role for governments and international partnerships in ensuring that the least developed and developing countries don't see their aspirations for poverty reduction and growth dashed on the rocks of growing turbulence and insecurity.
He then spelt out how British Prime Minister Gordon Brown had set up a fund to tackle climate change.
Heads of government meeting. He outlined the ways in which we can react and respond to climate change, working to offer $100 billion a year from 2013, enabling real mitigation actions and real contributions. And he did it because we recognized that somebody had to move beyond the theoretical negotiations where there's a standoff around the absence of hard figures being provided. And so we felt we had to put some figures on the table because we have to get this debate now down to real action as what is the financial cost that can reasonably, or contribution that can reasonably be expected of developed countries to help developing countries meet the challenge of climate change.
With Commonwealth heads of government meeting in November, 1 month before Copenhagen, it was critical rich and poor nations agreed joint policies.
Climate equity will be a key issue at the meeting at CHOGM because it is a place where countries with smaller economies can press richer countries to decarbonize their economies, and that the leaders of the biggest economies are forced to focus on the impacts on the poorest and most vulnerable.
The British government believes CHOGM will play a key role for Commonwealth nations to agree collective policies to take with them to the Copenhagen summit on climate change.